I drew a bubble bath in my hotel room. What a lovely phrase to say. As I sunk below the tiny and large bubbles, 900 years of solitude huddled beneath the surface, the delightful heat giving me a better feeling than before. I closed my eyes to seek recognition of where the urge had gone. But there it was, still frail, like a little barely throbbing heart. I could feel my fangs ready to answer its call, itching to extend. I must indulge the thought, just for a moment, I told myself, just to make it go away. I imagined the young woman on the train, imagined me ripping open her jacket, her shirt, neck exposed, a dainty and ineffectual crucifix daring me further. I pin her down and sink my teeth into flesh. How many years had it been? She screams. And what? I leave a poor girl with an open artery, needing medical attention, traumatized for life, or the other option. I was not born a vampire. Neither was Agatha. Vampires, at least among our collective memory, come from other vampires. We do not know our true originator, though some have speculated. A vampire is not made simply by another vampire biting anyone's neck. There must be a recognition, there must be the magic, there must be a call. Back when we were young and living on our own, no family to our name, Agatha and I lived in a settlement not unlike a village on the edge of an old-growth forest. We had protection from others, but always we needed to be ready to move from our modest stone dwelling. I say this only to paint the picture of the Middle Ages, a time as dark as it has been told. Still, the forest that we lived by was beautiful, though it had a common myth soon passed down to us about a woman and a house that would appear and disappear deep in the forest at dusk. The settlers there would mark the forest in specific places on the rocks with charcoal marks to warn those among us not to travel past these points. Some had seen the woman, impressively large, seemingly dressed in a garment described as many dresses of many colors woven together. They described her like a fairy queen or like a mad queen, though there is no direct translation to our language then. It is something like mad and ferocious, but also awe-inspiring. The house was found on several occasions, but since there had been some who had disappeared, no one was courageous enough to try to enter the house, and when they returned with reinforcements, the house would always be gone. The people who disappeared, many suspected, had simply left the settlement without notice, or perhaps been captured by roving bandits. Still, the story was told and retold. I was in search one day of a berry that I could use to make a dye for my paints. It had ceased growing near our settlement, and so one day, thinking the story more myth than caution, I ventured far into the old-growth forest. She appeared to me like from nothing, like I had known her all my life, familiar. Though her accent was rough and she spoke a different dialect, we could understand each other more or less. I thought at the time she was simply an old woman from a neighboring settlement. She had a glowing face, a kind maternal one, and I know that Agatha and I, both being orphans, that this appearance did much to persuade me to follow her. She was indeed wearing an odd sort of dress, ripped at parts, almost artistically, like and she carried a basket full of mushrooms and roots. I think at least it's what I recall. When I finally made her to understand I was looking for this particular berry, she exclaimed with a cackling joy that she had too much at her home and she would gladly give them me. Whether it was by skill of magic or my own naivete, I followed her deep through some thicket into a clearing where a stone house lay, the chimney billowing with smoke, the smell of something delicious cooking. Inside, she sat me down. She asked me nice questions, and she patted my head affectionately as she filled a bowl for me with stew that was, to this day, a memory too delicious not to remember from what would happen after I ate. At this time, I did not think that women would want sex like men did, nor would I ever imagine that a woman her age would be interested in a young man like me. I resisted her advances at removing my shirt, but somehow her strength was undeniable. She threw me onto her bed and lay on top of me, and then it happened. To this day, I have not seen fangs on a vampire like this woman, this monster, which is what she was. Before she dug her fangs into my neck, I saw her being changed into an almost reptilian form, something I have not seen since in a vampire. Then, unable to fight her off, I felt her pierce my skin. I let out a scream, but this, as I would learn later, was not the scream of your average victim. It was the cri du cœur. This was the scream of a vampire being born. At the moment, I remember my young life flashing before my eyes. I remember the pain that I would not be able to create art or learn as an apprentice how to mix paints properly or paint my first mural. I remember all this regret going into my scream. The monster released her mouth and looked into my eyes. I looked back, something burning through my pupils from the back of my head. She looked pained but also frightened. Again, she dug her fangs into my neck to suckle at it while I tried in vain to push her off. But then she released me. I gripped my wound in agony as she ripped a long ribbon off her dress, wrested my hand away from my neck, and bandaged me in a lightning-quick motion. She then took me by the scruff of the neck and threw me to my knees out her door. In a low growl, she said to me,
"Never come back or I will kill you."
As I turned to run haphazardly sideways, tripping over myself through the thicket where I had come. In time since, it is uncommon for a vampire not to mentor a new vampire that you have recognized as one of your own. If we can outcast another vampire, this would be one of the reasons, but this was a different time, and she was a very different kind of vampire. Agatha screamed as I collapsed through our doorframe. That's all I remember from that. As she recalled, she nursed me back to health, and as I regained lucidity, I told her what had happened. She listened intently, believing every word somehow. Agatha had always taken careful notes of strange stories, even before we were thrust into the world of the supernatural. Agatha would not have disobeyed the signs of the woods. As we both observed my growing fangs, we also observed a change in many other things. Though I was still weak and recovering, I would draw with coal on the wall to distract myself. Strange things began to manifest. Agatha testified to my eyes glowing and changing colors. Once when I was in a fit trying to sleep, she swore she saw me float several inches into the air. It was enough to convince her. When I slept, Agatha locked me in and made her way to the forest without my knowledge to find the woman. Baba Yaginya, Agatha told me, is what she had learned she was called. she told me later. There was only slightly more chance that Agatha, as my twin, was also born to be vampire by vampire, as some called it. Some think the chance is 1 in 1,000, some 10,000 or more. The reigning theory is that there must be something in the person that craves immortality more than anything else. And so, perhaps it was so also for Agatha. She could not stand the thought of not being there to protect me, perhaps. Though I never asked her why she did it. Family is strange, no? I would not have been the same. If Agatha had been bit and become vampire, I would have had a powerful sister to protect and lived my days simply, trying to make it as some kind of artistic craftsman. There is nothing in my nature that would have compelled me to travel into a dark forest to my possible death. Like I said, I always resented Agatha for it. She was brave enough to love. She loved me enough to be truly brave. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Resent is not the right word. Family is a complicated thing. A dirty thing, said Barnabas once, but he killed his father and 2 brothers, so that isn't really apples to oranges. But then if Agatha had been beat before me, Agatha might simply have been dead. I would have gone in search of my sister and found Baba Yaginya, and she would have overpowered me, probably, and I would have become vampire, and, well, I would have been an even worse vampire, that's for sure. The bath water was growing cold, so I got out wrapped in 2 towels and looked out my window at the highway and across that at the dome of what would be the capital, I think. It was a very nice room, but still I'm not used to mattress, so I took the blankets and made my bed on the floor by the open window, letting the cold remove all possibility of the urge coming back. Even with the window open, it was warmer than my apartment in Woonsocket, but that's not saying much. I noticed that the dome of the Capitol was glowing red. Perhaps it was some holiday or event I was not aware of, or perhaps it was a signal that a vampire had arrived in Providence. In any case, I have been warned. I must tread carefully, I think. Sometimes our biggest danger is ourselves. I will try to sleep now. I will tell you how it goes.